Submitted plans for a super sewer for the capital. It's a Tideway tunnel which will run under the River Thames and bring London's Victorian sewers up to date. But just why does the capital need it, and how much will it cost us? Here's Martin Stew.
From clean water to dirty, it all ends up in the capital's Victorian sewers, a brickwork labyrinth built 150 years ago, still in perfect working condition, but struggling to cope with a population twice the size it was designed to support. To see the scale of the problem, I headed into the sewers near Blackfriars Bridge. This is the main Fleet sewer. At the moment the levels are quite low, but when you get very heavy rain or a storm, water rushes through here and there's an overflow, a little bit like the overspill on a bath where we're standing. The water charges through here out towards the River Thames, pumping untreated sewage and rainwater up to 50 tonnes a second into the river. When Bazalgette designed the sewers, this was supposed to only happen 2 or 3 times a year. Now it's more like once a week, pumping 39 million tonnes of dirty water into the Thames every year. So how would the tunnel help? Well, rather than having sewage flushing straight into the Thames, it would go down overflow drains into the 15.5-mile-long tunnel, travelling from Acton in the west to Abbey Mills in the east. There the sewage would pass into the Lee Tunnel and be transferred to Beckton, Europe's largest sewage works. It's an enormous engineering feat, which would cost £4.2 billion.
It's 7.2 metres in diameter. That's wide enough to put 3 London buses in side by side, and it goes down to 67 metres deep at Abbey Mills pumping station, which is the equivalent of a 22-storey building underground. So by any standards, it's a large project.
If approved, construction will start in 2016, take 6 years and employ 4,000 workers. It will cause major disruption at least 21 sites along the river and see every Thames water bill rise by at least £70. It's a major undertaking which will inevitably cause a stink. Martin Stew, ITV News.
And I'm joined now by Christian Saracen, who is the founder of Clean Thames Now and Always. Christian, what are your main issues with this plan?
Well, the main issue really is that it's the wrong solution. I mean, your reporter mentioned that Bazalgette system's been designed 150 years ago. In those days, state-of-the-art engineering was to combine rainwater and sewage inside a single pipe. Nowadays, 150 years later, it's hard to believe that actually no progress has been made, and the purpose of the tunnel really is to continue that outdated practice.
But the water will be cleaned up, the sewage will be cleaned up and then pumped into the sea. So surely that's a development. It's not, they're not using just the 150-year-old system.
Absolutely, you're quite correct on that. However, one of the issues is where's that rainwater coming from? And perhaps are there better uses we could make of rainwater, such as, for example, allowing it to infiltrate into the ground to recharge the underwater aquifers and prevent droughts. I mean, you will remember that last year we started the year in a drought that lasted like for the first sort of quarter of the year, and then very quickly it flipped into a flood situation. So all of this is caused by climate change, and one of the issues with the sewer is it will exacerbate climate change because of its own carbon footprint.
Because the system that you're talking about is often referred to as sustainable urban drainage.
That's correct.
But surely the tunnel is a more permanent solution, perhaps, because we have to think, you know, forward to another 150 years' time, and perhaps the tunnel will be a more sustainable way of dealing with that. But the sustainable urban drainage system, it's still quite a new concept. We don't necessarily know if it will still be able to cope in 150 years' time. Well,
I'd say actually quite the opposite. One of the cities in the US, Milwaukee, actually was one of the first cities to build such a deep tunnel system back in 1994. 8 years later, they had to shore it up because it couldn't cope with the rainwater. And the same thing's going to happen with London, because inevitably, with more climate change, as we've seen all too well, you know, last year and the beginning of this year, the rainwater will increase, and then you're channeling everything into a single pipe. That's a massive concentration risk.
Now, one of the plus points, surely, with this project is it will create 4,000 jobs, which in this economy has got to be a good thing.
Well, yes, and but I would add that those jobs are going to be going mostly to, you know, overseas contractors, because it's a fairly specialised skill that you need there. With green infrastructure, on the other hand, you'd actually be creating a long-lasting, sustainable, local green economy. Yeah. And that is a lot better, and that would last a lot longer than the 10 years it will take to build a tunnel.
OK, well, Christian Saracen, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.